Of course, I tried the Jacqueline Kennedy 1967 menu at the Raffles Hotel in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. A bit of backstory. In 1967, Jackie Kennedy was asked by President Lyndon B. Johnson for a big favor. Would she go to Cambodia and personally persuade Prince Sihanouk to permit the US to drop bombs on the Ho Chi Minh Trail's Cambodian sections? Bilateral relations between the US and Cambodia had been severed since 1965, with Prince Sihanouk, then Chief of State, having stated his conditions for reestablishing ties via Australian and French interlocutors as number one, recognition for Cambodia's boundaries, number two, compensation for lives lost, and number three, an end to bombings and incursions in the country. Oh, the irony. Jackie was the perfect and perhaps only operative who might have succeeded in this mission. She was not a professional diplomat, but a friend of a friend. When JFK met Sihanouk at the Carlisle Hotel in New York in 1961, they genuinely got along. Jackie's almost Frenchness matched that of Sihanouk and his wife Monique, and JFK's mode of entertaining, formally and with every European luxury and conceit, suited their taste and comfort level. Self-made men and those born into privilege and prestige are essentially different, and the two couples clicked in a way that Lyndon and Lady Bird didn't and couldn't. While Sihanouk and Monique wouldn't deal with many of the political personages they encountered beyond immediate affairs of state, they didn't consider Jackie socially beneath them or uncomfortably foreign, and her days as First Lady, now years past, didn't perceive her as having ulterior motives. Her initial gesture was to write a letter to Sihanouk asking him to arrange a trip to see Angkor, as it was one of her childhood dreams. Glamorous, mannered, cultured, warm at times, and rather expert at flattery, Jackie was also, perhaps most importantly, ever so slightly pathetic at that moment. Iconically widowed at just 34, she was reinventing herself out of necessity, traveling extensively, visiting old friends, and deciding how to move on. Much was made of her traveling to Cambodia with Lord Harlech, whose wife had just passed away 2 months prior. Jackie invited him as he was not only an unassailable British diplomat and Southeast Asia expert, but a former close personal friend of JFK's. At the time, Harlech was annoyed enough by press speculation to issue a statement, quote, Mrs. Kennedy and I have been close friends for 13 years, but there is no truth to the story of a romance between us. I deny it flatly. End quote. Yet a very intimate relationship did ensue. He proposed marriage, and she turned him down, all in Cambodia. For Sihanouk and Monique, showing America's fabulous, charming, same age, Dowager Duchess, a wonderful time in their neck of the woods was a pleasure, not an obligation. They were delighted to show off Angkor Wat and drink great French wine at Hôtel L'Oréal, wearing Valentino and Norman Hartnell, seeing it as something easy they could do to please the pro-American Lon Nol followers. At a press conference in Phnom Penh prior to her arrival, Sihanouk said, quote, We gladly welcome Her Excellency Kennedy, only because she is a remarkable woman, and we used to admire the beloved former president who was assassinated. It has been written that we used to be happy with the death of J.F. Kennedy, which is really wrong. End quote. A reporter asks, Would Your Majesty feel aggrieved if one day Her Excellency Kennedy remarried? And Sihanouk answered, quote, Our policy is not to interfere in the affairs of other countries. Therefore, it is not at all polite for us to be interested in the private life of Her Excellency Kennedy. We would like to wish her nothing but happiness. End quote. We all now know that Sihanouk made the wrong decision, one that countless other fears and factors should have kept him from making. He had good insight on potential negative outcomes, including from Australia, whose embassy had been handling backroom negotiations and consular affairs for the US. Yet, I think not near enough blame gets put on Jackie. It's not even common knowledge that she personally made the big ask. Prince Sihanouk denied being influenced by her at all, exclaiming during a press conference broadcasted by Radio Phnom Penh and quoted by the New York Times on January 11th, 1968, quote, They wanted to give this visit significance. They wanted Jackie to be able to reestablish diplomatic relations between Cambodia and the United States without the United States having to fulfill the conditions set by Cambodia. They wanted Jackie to obtain the repatriation of all prisoners, civilian and military, currently imprisoned by the National Liberation Front. They wanted Jackie to obtain I don't know what. End quote. It's possible that's entirely true, and he was only pressured into cooperating due to other inexorable factors. Yet, I do believe a magpie like Sihanouk would have been much more likely to flatly say no to anyone else, or at least set much stricter conditions. I genuinely believe he thought Jackie was his friend who wanted the best for him. In his welcome speech, he had written that were JFK still president rather than LBJ, there wouldn't even be a war in Vietnam. Lord Harlech emphasized to Jackie how problematic this was, and she asked Sihanouk to retract it last minute, which he did. I wonder, did Jackie think she was doing the right thing? Did she just feel she owed LBJ a favor? To this day, almost 60 years hence, children in the countryside of Cambodia are exploding, at least partially due to Sihanouk's acquiescence. There's, of course, no guarantee the US wouldn't have dropped bombs had he said no. Asking for forgiveness rather than permission, then not even asking for forgiveness, and then eventually making a perverse show of forgiving its victims has been the trajectory of US diplomacy over the ensuing half century. That's why it's so curious to me that Jackie's visit is so blithely commemorated at the present-day Raffles in Phnom Penh. I suppose her image as a timeless style icon so outweighs any awareness of her role in Cambodia's sordid past that too few people find it distasteful. I do, but I ordered the Jacqueline Kennedy 1967 menu anyway. Such is the sway of Jackie. Was it worth it? No. First, as usual, the non food items. The atmosphere on Saturday night was dead, though not in a way I much minded, perhaps even in a way I appreciate as a frumpy solo female traveler. There are few tables in the formal dining room, fewer than 10 if memory serves, and at any given time, half were empty. The crowd was the standard bourgeois hotel crowd, a group of European boomers on holiday, an American couple on honeymoon, a local big boss with his family of about a dozen, including several young children, another solo diner giving strong digital nomad passport bro vibes, wearing AirPods rather than listening to the live pianist, and a semi-formally dressed Chinese couple, a few years older than me, seated on either side of the double doors of the private dining room, neither eating nor drinking, whom I soon realized, as teen girls in designer clothes flitted in and out in pairs, were parents hosting a birthday or similar celebration for their daughter, who undoubtedly attends some expensive local international school. Thinking back on Sweet 16s at the Plaza or Pierre almost 30 years ago now, I chuckled out loud, remembering how none of my friends' parents were so careful if they were physically present at all. The decor of Restaurant Le Royal is meh. Formal but meh. The bar and lobby of the hotel are far more picturesque. Drinks. About 10 days later, I decided to round out my investigative reporting at the Elephant Bar. So, since this is already the most long-winded review with the most tangents possible, I'll review that also quickly now. The bar food sucks. I had one item from the quote-unquote Asian menu, kep crab cakes with smashed avocado, tomato and mango salsa, and wasabi mayo, and one item from the quote-unquote Western menu, duck confit, potato croquettes with foie gras dip and figs and pear condiment. Except I guess there was no foie gras, pear, or figs for little old me because this was spicy mayo. And is that avocado practically brown? Yes. Were both the crab cakes and the croquettes 90% breadcrumbs? Yes. And they were both really bad, really, really bad. The only decent thing I ate here was the barbecued crickets with lemongrass salt, supposedly trucked in all the way from Kampong Thom province. They were very tasty, so if you feel like being a bit adventurous but don't fully trust the creepy crawly food trucks, highly recommend. Now, all cocktails in Southeast Asia are sweet to an Anglo palate. If you don't mind sweet, the cocktails here are good. They have lots of good Raffles, chain, and Le Royal specific drinks here using local ingredients like Kampot pepper, ma om leaves, etc. Raffles likes to compete in cocktail competitions. They consider it part of their heritage. And this branch of the firm keeps up the good fight. I've had many drinks here and I haven't had a bad drink here. They specialize in G&Ts and feature appropriately named ginventory with gin fusions. And that's my lifestyle of choice. So, also exciting, Rick Owens and Michel Lamy were there when I was there. I've never felt so poor and bland in my life. Obviously, no one in Cambodia knows who they are, and I'm not gauche enough to photograph them. And I couldn't find any photographic evidence of this online, but it would have been smack in the middle of their presenting men's and women's fall winter 2025 in Paris. I did find a quick little essay in Purple magazine. Rick wrote about his father tolerance, exoticism as self indulgence, Japan and Japanese aesthetics, and more. That appeared online around the same time I saw them, so they must have been doing some sightseeing and soul searching on a whistle stop Asia trip. Very few celebrities come through Cambodia, but any that do and are looking for an old school colonial type haunt, not soulless high rise suites, will stay here their first night in country, almost guaranteed. So if you're a people watcher, this bar's not a bad choice. But back to the menu. The best drink by far was the femme fatale cocktail served before dinner. Anywhere else, though I doubt it's served anywhere except retro-themed speakeasies featuring favorite cocktails of golden era film stars, this was Marlene Dietrich's. A femme fatale is gin, Cointreau, and lemon juice. At Raffles, it's crème de fraise de bois, cognac, and champagne, though I suspect they substitute cheaper sparkling wine these days. Supposedly, the recipe was whipped up just for Jackie. What a morbid joke. They could never have guessed how on the nose the name would become. In 1967, the trendiest drink in Southeast Asia was the Singapore Sling, an early example of successful heritage branding at Raffles, a resurrection from the 1900s or 1910s, strong, sweet, fruity, and bright pink. Along the same lines, the femme fatale was introduced as a drink as red as Jackie's lips, except Jackie never wore a red lip, usually a pearlescent pink, and the drink served today is about the color of apple juice, so who knows. The wine pairing was $48 and not right for me, I'll say. I blame myself entirely because the selections are clearly stated on the menu. I just didn't bother looking them up. First up was an $18 bottle Venetian Pinot Grigio, then a $26 bottle Australian Chardonnay, next an $18 bottle Loire Valley Sauvignon Blanc, then a $35 bottle Grave House Red Cab Merlot mix. None of these were terrible, but they certainly weren't great, and they were all cheaper and worse than anything I'd serve at home. Whatever the tariffs, I'm a bit surprised Raffles would serve such mediocre wine, and can't imagine Jackie was served anything but the best wine, so I was disappointed. I'd rather pay triple for pairings matching the varietal, terroir, and quality of what she was served, even more for exact vineyard matches and equivalent vintages. That's what I was expecting, failing to note the price. At least they were generous with what they have. They let me have a second glass, gratis, from the giant Dame Jeanne of Lobad Armagnac XO paired with dessert. It was blended, not vintage, and I forgot to take a picture, so I don't know if it goes for $55 or $95, but either way, it was by far the most expensive thing they served, and at least by that point, I was sloshed. Maybe I shouldn't complain. 7 glasses of liquor in an upscale hotel setting doubtless represents value for many people. I think all of these were high quality for the price, just cheaper than I'm used to. Chosen well considering local market constraints, perhaps. Rather than wobbling out, I'd have preferred only 2 or 3 glasses of better stuff. Finally, the food. I don't expect value for food at Raffles. That would be absurd, but I actually think I kind of got it. I really enjoyed only perhaps half of what I ate, but would have happily paid $88 for just those dishes. I did experience an irrational bit of buyer's remorse. It was only when I considered the other dishes that I questioned if it was worth $88. I did expect decent cooking, but also that a French menu made with Cambodian ingredients served in 1967 would be a bit wacky by today's standards, and it was a little. First, the amuse-bouche was some sort of seared pate, good but not memorable in any way. Four types of bread with herbed butter followed and were consumed alongside the courses. They differed somewhat in look, but not so much in taste. The gourmet salad with duck gizzards was fine, tasty, competent, healthy. That's a big crouton on top, not anything exciting. The poultry cream soup was a no and really had that vintage vibe, like a bucket of cream and flour with no salt or pepper and the tiniest, fewest cubes of chicken or duck or carrot or whatever was in there imaginable. Really, no. The duck foie gras millefeuille I loved because I'm a rich bitch. Perhaps not in the sense of possessing vast wealth, but definitely in the sense of possessing a preference for buttery, savory, high fat foods. This was so filling, it could have been a meal itself. The foie gras, salad, and a glass of white wine is about what I'd normally order for dinner. I imagine Jackie took 1.5 bites and started aggressively initiating conversation rather than risk her figure for this. My second favorite, the mushroom stuffed tenderloin, was next and came out shockingly rare, dare I say blue. I should have expected no less from a French trained kitchen, and it was delicious. The French toast with fruit and basil ice cream was bland. That is not a correct flavor for ice cream. But the mignardises were great. Little candied fruits and nuts and a couple tiny chocolates. Not too much or too heavy, perfect to nibble with brandy. Wandering around the back halls for a bit before calling it tuk-tuk, I thought about the renovations. I rather dislike the excessively cheap and standardized decor in Raffles hotels. They don't understand why they ripped out the original antique caustic tile floors and wooden shutters. It was total overkill. The quote-unquote look of luxury will look dated in 10 or 20 years guaranteed. Restoring to the original never looks dated. There are various vitrines showcasing pricey souvenirs available in the shop. Think $2,000 Pylon gem set belts and handbags, not $8 fake silver beetle boxes. And opposite them, a little homage to Jackie. Framed press photos of her toasting with Prince Sihanouk and hiking around Angkor Wat, and a pair of her iconic big brown bubble sunglasses, on which I regretfully couldn't find any branding due to how they're folded over the picture frame, beg the questions. Did she leave them somewhere by accident? Give them to someone? Were they purchased at an auction in the 90s or something? They're clearly not the ones she's wearing at Angkor, but they could still be hers, or maybe not. One color photo shows the state gifts she was presented with, though obviously she was not really in a position to receive such things at that time. And another vitrine features the supposed very cocktail glass she drank from with a faint old lipstick print. Legend has it, one of the waiters saved it as a trophy and hid it away in the cellar somewhere, and it was only discovered years later, but what are the odds it really sat untouched through the Civil War, the Khmer Rouge, the Vietnamese occupation, the years the hotel was abandoned? If it really is Jackie's glass, I almost think it wasn't a worker who saved it, but Sihanouk himself. He rode out most of those years under house arrest in his own palace and personally oversaw the hotel's 1997 renovation and reopening as a Raffles property. Jackie died in 1994, so she was never able to condone or condemn this marketing. I hate to think no one ever saved her glass at all, and this is all a totally unnecessary ploy to profit from her image. Honestly, truly, we'd buy the drink custom created for her without the existence of an old lipstick print on a glass. Also in the case is a horrid piece of polyester she never would have worn, that's close to the same color as one of the gowns she did wear, and an equally bad faux pearl bracelet and necklace, which again clearly were not hers. And some souvenir Encore trays and trinket boxes, nothing like the fine, pure, artisanal Khmer silver she was given. All those silversmiths were eliminated. I don't think it's even possible to get that sort of silver in Cambodia today. Though this presentation seems antithetical, I guess it's less weird than an otherwise empty vitrine housing a single dirty old liquor glass. I don't know. With a bottle of Perrier, my bill came to 167 US dollars. I don't regret the meal, though I'm sure there are 1,000 Michelin one-star lunches in Europe that are 10 times better than this for the same price. I did learn what I think I should have already known about Raffles. Raffles is best for imports, mixed drinks, and steak. The best parts of this meal by far were the foie gras, tenderloin, and cocktail. I'm a sucker for punishment, so I'll probably be back making another mid review about their Royal Khmer tasting menu before I finally resign myself to Gueridon service and gin slings. But, my hope springs eternal.